All right, everybody. Hey, guess what? It is Saturday, February 1st, 2020. No witnesses over at the impeachment farce thing, which is really good. And you know what? I'm pretty sure he's got a few shady things that he's done in his life. But you know what? Everybody does. And if these guys can't find something shitty enough to impeach him, he doesn't need to be impeached. So, with that, Ed, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Yeah, this impeachment process, I like to make sure that people comprehend. You got to remember, we're still under the structure of the British government. Democracy, the British government. And if you're not living in real reality, sorry that for your luck. But that's exactly what we're living in. So that's why Trump is being attacked, because he didn't bow his head to the Queen. And if you pay attention to the real history fact, because like I've been having fun with people, and by the way, folks, thanks for joining us again this evening. And I'm having fun with people, a lot of fun. Because like I say, everybody keeps going, well, Obama's the president. He was born in Hawaii. Well, anybody with any really intelligence out there, and I've been emailing this all around the YouTube channels, with the hearings and all that, Obama's a terrorist. Because Hawaii is owned by the Queen of England, if anybody's done their research. And have you ever looked at the flag in Hawaii? It's the British Jack flag. You can't change the history. You can't change the facts on it. It's the British Jack flag. So it's disturbing to me when I watch people go through these things and try to argue with me on circumstances like this, when the fact is, and the truth is that you can't argue because you already lost, because it's already admitted that this is the Queen of England. So that's why under Title 28USC3002, the private corporation is England. And when you do your research and you read and watch this stuff, you realize it's England. And we've been fighting with England. It's like the Queen of England's been trying to take this throne back that, she put out a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, 2 and 3 years ago, put out a deal in the New York Times and a New Yorker, because remember, the New Yorker, New York Times is in New York City, and that is still owned by the Queen of England, the Vatican. New York State is not part of that corporation, but New York City is. I believe that's one of the reasons why Trump got smart and moved out, because, he got into that and realized that. Because that's exactly what it is. So I'm going to get into a couple topics tonight, and I'm going to put the videos up on one, because I want people to comprehend this point about signing under duress. Because when you sign under duress, and that's what I try to explain to people, that's a hard thing to prove, but also, too, if you can prove it, you won your case. So, but if you're forced to sign a contract, like some people are getting ready to go to court again, and they're going to be forced to sign a contract, but every time I would be forced to sign a contract, I always do everything in red ink. I always take my right thumbprint and put red ink on my thumb, or if I have my ink pad, I'll put my red ink seal on it. And then I always write under duress. And then I would put Title 28.3002 under duress, because they're forcing you to comply with the Queen of England. We are not a monarchy state. If you want the religious state, go back to England. We don't want your Bible. People keep going, Ed, you're so hard on the Bible. Well, yeah, because it's from England. It's the British Bible. It's not an American Bible. And people say, well, it's an American Bible. It's been here. No, it's not. It was shoved down our throats from the men and women who raped and murdered our people. That's the point. When these people come in and put a flag and they stick their flagpole in your ground, and now they're going to tell you to go serve them, and that you have no rights, and you better plead, and if you don't do things right, people go, I'm free. You ain't free. You have no concept what freedom is. You buy a fishing license. You buy a hunting license. You're fair. When a cop pulls up behind you, you're terrified. You're not free. So don't tell me you're free when you have no concept of what freedom is. I've been there. I know what freedom is. You know, until I really went public with all this stuff, I didn't have hassles. And then when I went public, boy, I started getting it because, you know, they knew I knew that they knew that I knew that you knew I knew. So, but I mean, this is a point that coming down with proper education, and most people don't get it. And the other point that I was passing around with the circumstances that, you know, like this one with Donald Trump in the email, I had enough so I could put it in the boxes for the YouTube channels. Had it done, but also too, I put, oh, that's right, courts are free. If you don't read and learn this, you will end up paying between $300 to $600 to file a court case. And so this goes back to 28 U.S.C. 1914 District Court filed miscellaneous fees. So if you have to pay for the privilege of going to their Vatican court system, and that's exactly what it is, the Vatican court system. So Article 1 court system, so legislative court system. You're not in an Article 3 because in Article 3 you don't sit there with a judge talking to you. You sit there with a grand jury, a juror talking to you. And that's what you want. When you do that, you want a grand jury of your peers. And no public employee could be on a grand jury. That's a conflict of interest, folks. Conflict. And we're going to get into that. I'm going to read some of the conflicts of interest stuff so you get it. And when public servants talk to you about a person, I always love it because, you know, people, you know, most of the people in my state, they know who I am when I talk to them on the West Coast here. And people start talking person, and I would say, please don't disrespect me like that. Well, and then it's like, no, don't do that. You can do that to all the other slaves, but don't do that to me because I'm not your slave. And I'm very blunt with these people on the phone. And, you know, and these people really do know it. I am blunt. Because a corporation, you know, this is the one thing, you know, that when you're using the word person, that means you're an inanimate object. A person does not exist. Sovereign people are not persons or personal or anything like that. Sovereign, if you're sovereign, you are saying that you are free. I don't like to use the word sovereign because they'll try to turn this, oh, you're a sovereign citizen on your crap. So I don't use that. I just use lawful bloodline native. And then they look at you and go, huh? Well, I'm a bloodline native. You know, my family's been here for several hundred years. What's your problem? See, I like to stay away from that word called citizen because, you know, when they did the Administration Act after the Civil War and they changed the person into a corporation or the living man and woman into the corporation called the person. It's like you got to realize that they did this deliberately. This is not something that was just done slide. You know, these people knew exactly what they're doing back then. They had all the power because they didn't have media like we do today. And so when they passed things, they just got done, and nobody knew about it until all of a sudden, like we are today, when we're being railroaded in the court system. And everybody's going, oh, the court systems are fraud. We know it's fraud. But that's the other point. When you're getting mailing from them, write your mailing down and then look it up, and you want to do the research. And I haven't got a template on this one, but I've got to work on it. I haven't had time yet. But see, that's called theft by deception. So when they're trying to tell you that, oh, you need this information and you need that information to provide to me so that way I can charge you, that's extortion. And also, too, you always put that you were always threatened by a firearm. Because the bailiff, the cop, everybody wears a sidearm or firearm or a pistol or a gun. So you want to put that in that writing saying that you were threatened by a man that walked up even if you were traveling. I was threatened by a man who walked up to my car with a pistol. I didn't know if he was going to shoot me or not. And people will say, oh, you can't assume that they would do something like that. Yes, I can assume that. It happens every day. More and more people are killed in the highways by cops than anywhere else in the world. I mean, you got to remember, from all the mass shootings done in the United States, the cops have shot and murdered 5-1 on mass shootings. But that's not in the paper, the press. You know, they don't want to put that out that, you know, they can shoot to kill. Trust me, I've been that. I've had that order by the governor on me, shoot to kill. You know, I've been there, done it, seen it. Been there with the guns put into my head. Got YouTube videos with guns shoved to my head. So, and this is the one thing when it comes down to it. A corporation is not a citizen within the meaning of the provision of the Constitution. See, this is the one thing you got to, that's why I always tell people, you got to read the Constitution and most of all, read the treaties. And people say the Constitution is the law of the land. No, the Constitution guarantees the treaties as the law of the land, and the treaties guarantee the Constitution as the law of the land. And that was determined in the 1812 War, the Paris War, if you actually read the Paris Treaty. And remember, the Paris Treaty is dealing with Paris. That's not dealing with the native men and women. That is a treaty with the British government on American soil with Paris. This is the war. See, I mean, and read these things and comprehend. It's like the Civil War. We've had the Civil War. We've fought the British government again, you know, with us fighting them to save our freedom. We've done that with World War I, World War II. You know, we've always been doing this. It's not like when they decided to, you know, do the Vietnam War, where all that was propaganda. We know that more now. I mean, how many of those guys that, you know, put in a position where they had to kill and murder, you know, children and women, and look at what they had to live with for doing something for the corporation to go steal copper and zinc. And we're doing that today. Why are we in these wars? I can see why we're in Iran, and the other point is, why are we wasting our time on, what do they call that country? Judaism, or whatever they want to call them, you know, Jerusalem. Why are we wasting our time with this stuff? Jerusalem God is not our God. See, you know, if you want that religion, go to Jerusalem. Do not come to our country. We don't want your religion. You know, the natives have had too much religion shoved down their throats and told how to live, and especially going by Christianity, the devil's book. I call it mind control book. It is. So that's conflict of interest. So, you know, a person is a bank account, basically is what it is. A person is the bankruptcy bank account, and that's under the Bankruptcy Act, and that's the termination of the person. And that is in Relation Act 2-1. So when you start reading this stuff, and like I said, they wrote it, we quote it. I mean, and that's the point. You know, you got all these people want to go off in these different directions, and it's like, read what the law is and administrative rules, statute codes are. The law is the Constitution and the native treaties. Statute codes and administrative rules is what the British government called your foreign agents of the 1938 Foreign Registration Act are. And every time you file something, you file with the court and you file with the Registration Act of the 1938 and see if they're registered. And if they're not registered, by law, they cannot do business. So business, technically, you have to, you know, you're just writing a letter saying, I can't do business with this court because you're not registered. And I will have a template on that. I thought I did one on that like a year ago, but I haven't seen it. I know I'm pretty sure I did, but I'll have to get a few more of these templates out. Excuse me, look online too, because there's a few more out there too that I could probably doctor up and cheat. But like I said, please, folks, when you stay away from religion, because when you go to churches and when you go to these ministers and you go to these judges, remember, they're all one and the same. They're all one and the same. It's like the famous saying is that, you know, the guy walks up to the court and the guy goes to the judge about, you know, his standing, and the judge goes, don't you know me and your preacher are one and the same? It's the same thing. It's what do they call that? The Christian Crusades. Things don't change. You can change the players, you can change the scenery, but you can't change the structure of the foundation of the way it's written. So, and that is the one thing too. If you're broke, they can't charge you. I'm going to get in reading some of this stuff about, and I will have this posted tonight at the end of the talk show too, on Courts Are Free. I'll have the whole structure of conflict of interest posted up tonight too. So when the courts are free, this means, and see, you got to remember, if you go into a court system, the only thing when you pay a fine, if you do pay a fine, always get a 1099 form, record it. Make sure they record that income. They don't record it, it's a crime. So you go after them. And also, too, you can fill out a 5406A form for them to prove that they're paying their taxes. I do that all the time. That includes paying your water, electricity bill. You know, that's the one thing you want to do. Anytime you pay anything, put a 1099 form in. So, and I realize that more and more now because, see, you want to be able to do that because we've got the paperwork, and I'll be getting into that here, dividing that up and dissecting it, dealing with how to pay your bills with a 1099 form and other stuff. I've got the form, I've got the administrative rules, but I want to sit down and read them. Like I've been saying for the last year on that one, I don't want to put anything out because I'm not setting myself to go into clink, and I'll be damned if I'm setting you up because I don't want your guilt. You know, I mean, if you do what you're doing on your own, that's one thing. But when it comes to me, you know, I'm not playing the games and set up for, you know, for guilt for you. A petitioner cannot be charged fees. And this is in this thing. So if you're making a complaint on somebody with criminal charge, you cannot be charged fees or filing fees or charged any fees. And that comes under the controlled government, and that's under Smith, Gass, and Westman case, and that is 189 ARK 67574 SW.2D 489 790. And that is from the Black Law Dictionary in the 5th edition. So you can't be charged for petition or cannot be charged fees. So when they go in and they want to charge you, oh, you need to pay the copy fees, that's a fee, so you're not supposed to pay copying fees. You know, and that's how they rape, rob, and steal. You know, everybody gets upset at me when I go, oh, that's all they do is rape children. Well, they do. They get money making raping children. Baby rape is a big industry. They can't solve a crime because if they solved crimes, they would be out of jobs. You know, like I said, I always preach that, you know, when a child or a woman's raped, give them a knife and let them cut them. You know, there's justice served because the court system doesn't do nothing because, remember, you know, these criminals, these preachers and churches and all them got to cover up for rape, rob, murder so that way they get away with it again. Then that way you go praying to their God. Oh, I got to go pray to God because something happened to me. I'm sorry, folks. I think that, you know, something happened like that, you take it out and you deal with it in the nature way, land of the animals. It's a lot more than man's law. Man's law is just rape, rob, and pillage and don't get charged. So anyhow, Hill versus Hinkle is a good case. It's 201 U.S. 43, and I recommend that people read that. They got several different versions of the Hinkle case, the Hale versus Hinkle, and it's worth reading the other sides of them because those things are good to put in your court cases. Because remember, when you always go to court, you always want to file before you go to court. And then when you end up going to court, the next time you go to court, you want to file the criminal charges for the judge extorting money, the clerk extorting money, racketeering, fraud, and extortion. Because, you know, they should have had this thing dismissed. They should have thrown it out of court. And so seeing that they're not, now you got to file the criminal charges on them from extortion. And when you get mail from them, that's a mail fraud, folks. So I do encourage you to look up the term mail fraud and mail fraud from government. Yes, they do have that up there with mail fraud from government when they try to extort money from you, and it is up there. And I have posted, if I find the laws, I'll post them up on the YouTube channel again. And that's the one thing that, and again, remember, when you go in front of a magistrate, remember, that's the same thing as England, magistrate. So that is the one thing that, look at the terminology of the British words here of what you're going in and know what court you're going into. See, that's the one thing you always want to write into the court before you go to court and ask them what court you're going in. Because I don't know what court I'm going in, so I need time to practice and read what I need to do. I need to read this court system, how I need to defend myself in your court system. So, and that's the other thing, too, when they declare an oath, that is 28 U.S.C. code 1746. So you want to use that, you want them to swear an oath in. And you ask the judge if he swore an oath in to handle this case. You can actually ask the judge these things. Of course, it doesn't mean you always get an answer, but, they're going to look at you going, how the hell do they know this, and why would I want, commit and put my foot in my mouth and possibly commit perjury? Because you can charge a judge with perjury, folks, but you have to write it. You have to file it. It's your responsibility. I talk to people all the time, well, they didn't do this, and I gave all the information, and they should file this, and they should do this. And it's like, put it this way, are you going to write a criminal charge against yourself, put your own ass in jail? I don't think so. So why are you asking these men and women to do the same thing that you won't even do to your own self? See, that's bizarre things that people don't think and step out of the movie, watch the production, and think themselves. So, and the one thing that I've had to correct over the years is when you use inhabitant, the word means inhabitant. That means you are a British slave. End of story. People will say, oh, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean this. Yes, it does. Look at the terminology. Look in the Black Law Dictionary. And also, too, you could actually look in your regular dictionary, your dictionary online. It'll come up and say the same thing. What a citizen and inhabitant is. They actually got it in the dictionary now, the separation of a large and small C citizen, but even in the dictionary, they don't recommend using any of them. Because you can't determine what a judge is going to do. Remember, he's a private contractor. So with a private contractor, that's called a conflict of interest. And going back to 1868, dealing when it was formed a corporation, remember, that was a civil war that we fought the British government again. We fought the South with the British government, folks. Wasn't that we were separated and finally fighting our own people from north to south? We were fighting north to south still with the British government. Why do you think the King of England funded both sides of the war? He wanted to keep control over the war. He wanted to keep it in his hands, his control of England. And even though we're not an English colony, I can't come on in your home and put a flag up and say, all right, I own your land, I own your soil. All these people go, oh, well, he could do that. He's a king. Well, I don't give a shit. I don't have a right to come in your home and do the same thing. Why are you letting some foreigner coming into your house and do the same thing to you? Dictating to you and how to live. So under U.S. national citizens, declared enemy by FDR, that was Executive 2040. That guarantees that everybody is a baby. Everybody is worth the bond, insurance bond at that time. This is back in 1932. The Bankruptcy Act was $630,000. Of course, it really makes you wonder where they came up with that number back then. Is that what they determined what was owed to the natives at that point? Because remember, the Bankruptcy Act and all that is what they owe the injured parties, the people that they did, because the Bankruptcy Act, that was the Bank of England that went bankrupt to we the people under the, that Title 28USC3002. Corporation went bankrupt to we the people because we the people own the country. And that's dealing with public land and public right-of-way, and they're selling our public land and right-of-way left and right. And this is one thing. How come people are not standing up? Because I know people are so selfish. I want that piece of property over there. I need that 100 acres. That's for me. Well, number one, we need to stop selling property to any immigrants that come into this country first, and then you can look at your 100 acres. But until you stop the invasion, you don't have a right to your 100 acres until you protect the country. So Joint House Resolution 192, June 5th, 1933, That is the debt that when you're supposed to be able to write off your water, electricity bill, and it's not like these people going out, oh, you could go write off your car, your home. No, it's to write off your living expenses. Your home, I guess, could be considered that. But that depends on how that is proven and the way it's written, and that depends on the way it's presented in administrative courts. And remember, you're going into administrative court unless you have a grand jury. And a grand jury, let's specify and clarify, a grand jury cannot have any and all and any elected and public employees on it. I've been in grand juries that they've screwed me and run me through. And I always love it when they do that, you know. They run me through and says, well, the judge says, well, I know this guy. He doesn't have a conflict of interest. He knows you. He's your friend. Been there in the courtroom arguing with a judge about his own personal friend. You know, well, come on, Ed. He's my friend. He doesn't, you know, shit. He's there to determine the court case because they didn't want me to win. Especially when the Toledo Police Department robbed my home and I went to go to court, and they robbed my home more than once. But I went to go to court where the police department robs my home. Then they convict me for the cops robbing my home. So with that one, I condemned the judge to hell, and not long after that, apparently he died. So, you know, it's Branford, he would go too. Time for that son of a bitch to go. He's caused more problems to people in this country and in this state than most, just as bad as Kate Brown, the governor. You know, rape, rob, and pillage. You know, if the children ain't raped, we can't make a living. And trust me, with Judge Branford in Lincoln County, I've witnessed that man letting, you know, Mexicans who raped children, raped them, and he let them go out of his courtroom and didn't give them fines or anything. Oh, just go ahead, you can go. Judge Branford supports children being raped. I've witnessed it with my own two eyes in his own courtroom. Of course, I worked on many court cases. That's why I haven't been in a courtroom in a while. I used to hang out in the courtrooms all the time, literally, with cameras and stuff and watch them. So, but this is the difference between a natural native-born versus citizen versus national. And people say, well, national, I'm a national. I'm going, okay, you want to claim to be a national. State versus manual, 20 NC 122, term citizen of the United States is obligated term is subject in common law. Oh, God. People say, I want common law. Common law is British law. That's what the judge decides. The change of phase is resulted from the change in government. I don't want common law. I want the law of the jungle. I don't want man's law. Common law, you don't realize that. People say, common law, you gotta remember, that guy next to you, he doesn't think the way you think. You know, he thinks that you farted next to him, you should go to jail. There are people think that that's offensive odor, and you should go to jail for farting next to him. Seriously, it's not a joke. People are that way. You're living in reality. You know, this is the real world. And that's the one thing that people got to comprehend, that, you know, we got all these people that are coming over, you know, coming to our country, and they think they have a right to food. They think they have a right to our stuff in this country. They don't have a right to be here. It's not our responsibility to pay these people. You know, and we don't want them here. That's the point. We never invited them to this country. People say, oh, well, we have a right to come to America. No, you don't. We're not an open door policy. The Democrats, these terrorists from foreign countries, have done that. And look at most of your damn Democrats in office. Not one of them is, you know, oh, I'm native, but my family's been living here 2 generations, or I moved here. I was born here. I was born here, but my structure is believed from somewhere else. So remember, for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party, corpus electi, man, woman, or child. And people go, and I think I was talking to another group this week, and they want to do another class action lawsuit, and I'm like, God, why don't you guys write them up individually, and that way when you do a class auction and your name come up on the list and the judge throws it all out, you'll never get a court case again, a hearing. But if you do it individually and they throw out 1, 2, 3, 10 of them, and then 2 go through, they have to reopen for the other ones. That's called new discovery. They don't want you to know these terminologies of how to open up the court case and bring it back to yourself. They don't want you to know this stuff. So a corpus delicti, you are the injured party. So seeing that you had a guy pull you over and he's got a gun on your hip and threatening you to harm you because you didn't pay him the highway toll, I'm going to shoot you, I'm going to harm you, I'm going to throw you in jail. That's corpus delicti. You just been threatened. You were injured. And remember, you always want to do stuff in an affidavit. And if you don't know what an affidavit is where you're writing your words to the best of your belief. You cannot lie in an affidavit. You cannot add things into an affidavit. It has to be the actual facts only. An affidavit must contain the following. A matter must be expressed to be resolved. Commerce, truth is sovereignty. Truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. Remember, you got to put your blood on that paper. You want to make sure that it's going to speak out. You're making sure that that complaint that you're doing is criminal charges. An unrebutted affidavit stands in commerce as fact, truth. An unrebutted affidavit becomes judgment in commerce. That's a judgment of the court. So you have to file in the court that they didn't respond to your affidavit. So it's your responsibility to file back into the court that nobody responded, which I've got several I have to do. I haven't got a chance to do it because I've been working on a lot of other projects. Oh, excuse me. Well, I'll get back to a couple of my own, but that's the one thing. When your affidavits are not answered, you want to make sure they're certified, and you send them to the state attorney general as well as the Supreme Court of that state. Send it back to the judge that won't hear your case. And people say, well, the judge didn't do it, so he's not going to do it. No, you go right to the Supreme Court, and if the judge doesn't do that, then you go to Washington, D.C. You know, you don't take 2 or 3 years or 2 or 3 months going through this. You do it all within 2 months. You know, you don't get a response in 21 days or 20 days or 17 days. You know, you got to be realistic. 7 days is the average. But, you know, I give them normally 21 days. Well, usually at 14, if I don't hear from them, I'll send another letter and the circumstances, and then I'll send the other one on the 21st day again, you know. But see, you got to make sure that paper trail's there because you're creating evidence. You're creating facts. You're not creating fiction. And the one thing like I always suggest to people, do not call into these agencies in writing. Once you put it in writing, you send it in writing, you emailed in writing, then call them. But make sure, excuse me, the conflict of interest statement. Because the mayor, the judge, the city council, all these people make their living. And people say, oh, that doesn't count. I said, well, you got to remember, when they get off that clock as a city council member, they have a local business. Is it funded by the taxpayers? Yeah, that's reaching, but it's true. See? You know, there are other ways of putting the conflict of interest statement in. You know, who's going to their business and buying the products? That could be a conflict of interest. You don't know until you decide that you have to serve somebody a conflict of interest for doing business with the mayor or city council. Because people say, well, that's a business and he has the right to do business. Well, that could be a conflict of interest too, couldn't it? See, I always suggest and I always try to step outside the movie and look at the real facts. I don't want to, you know, I'm not going to sit there and add words to something, to their structure. I'm going to write it and let them defend themselves. That's your job to defend themselves. It's not mine to defend themselves. And so that's the point that we're working on right now today with the structure, with it, like the conflict of interest and the other stuff, you know, that I keep running across and I'm bringing to you folks all the time. Because what we're bringing to you is bringing facts to you. You know, we're not going to ask you to do a wish and a prayer because I can pray all I want. But how many times has God answered my prayers? None. How many times He answered your prayers? None. See, you know, you got to be more realistic in your dreams, your hopes, your fantasy, your thoughts. What you're going to come out with. You know, people say, well, he did this, he did that. Well, who, what, why, and how? Sort of reminds me of how he cheated him and why. You know, that used to be a joke with, you know, when we were teenagers growing up. You know, we grew up around lawyers, and that was a big joke around lawyers back then. So, I mean, the point is that what are you writing your paperwork? What's your evidence? How are you putting your evidence together? And that is the one thing that you have to really realize when you're putting these paperwork together. You're making an instrument. You're making a document. You're making something where somebody has to be responsible, liable to be contacted you back. And that's what you really want. You want to create a dialogue. You want to be able to create factual evidence, not hearsay. Because once you have evidence in a court case. Hearsay is inadmissible. So you're creating your evidence too. You're responding back, here's a conflict of interest statement. Please explain why this is not a conflict of interest. And that's what you need to put in writing. Explain to me why this is not a conflict of interest. And see, these are things that you are supposed to do. You got to remember, these people don't care for you. They don't love you. Cops don't work for you. Supreme Court has said that more than once. Supreme Court has made it clear that the police department are private contractors, and they work for a city, county, state. Trust me, the city, county here always try to get me to comply. You do what you're told, Dad. You got to go by these city codes. I said, your city codes, you have to go by them. So does a church member. I don't give a shit. I don't go by your city code. Well, you're an inhabitant. You're a city member. I'm not a city member. I wouldn't be a city member. I wouldn't be a religious slave to you. And that's the one thing that you got to remember. You're a slave to them. And see, this is the other point, is that, you know, when it comes to taxes, everybody goes, I got to pay my taxes. Tax season's coming up again. I got to pay my taxes. And I said, where's your contract? And also, too, by law, you don't have to pay taxes on, what do they call that? Wages. Labor. Labor is not to be taxed by law. And you can even go to Oliver versus Helsted. 196 VA 992 says taxes cannot be charged if it's labor. That's law. And that's the one thing. I never paid taxes on my labor, even when I worked in the restaurant industry. I always filed exempt. You know, and that's also, too, Federal Reserve notes or valueless, IRC, Section 1.1001-4657 CHH. We already know, Federal Reserve notes as a promise to pay has no money. A check is not money. That was even determined by school district. That was the United States. That was school district versus United National Bank, P211, P2D 723. And the reason why is like this lady wrote a check to school district, it bounced. They wanted to go back after her. They tried to sue her, so turned out checks have no value. They're not money. You know, and that is the one thing. The term person, usually in this chapter, includes an officer. Remember, an officer at court or anybody in the court system, anybody in the legal system, is an officer of the court, is a person. or an employee of the corporation, of said corporation, of a corporation called a city, county, or state. And you got to remember, this goes all the way back, and this goes back to private citizen. Individual is not a person. And you have to use the word private if you want to do that, or I always just like lawful bloodline native, and in that way I'm not trying to get myself in a conflict of what they call that, a title of nobility. Yeah, and also too, no excise tax could be imposed. And that means paying for driver's license, property taxes. Those are excise taxes. And so this is the one thing in your property taxes. I'm fighting on my property taxes. I got to get this stuff written out because I got the stuff to go after in the state of Oregon. Dexter Johnson owns the state of Oregon. He's a copyright owner. And Dexter Johnson is legislative counsel for the entire state of Oregon. And I know Dexter, and I've emailed him even recently on the rights to travel and stuff. And so seeing that I haven't got a response back from anybody, now it's time for me to take the next step. Excuse me, the next step is to write up the charges, and you can get that filed in an Article 3 court. But also, too, what I'm doing this week is I just got my paperwork in, so I'm going to put in for the state of Oregon for a lottery fund, for 25% of lottery funds to go to Native Americans. I already wrote this bill. I tried to have the bill passed several times when I was working up at the Oregon State House and Senate. For lottery taxes, 25%. Originally, it was 15%, but I changed it to 25%. To come back to lawful bloodline natives, and that means at the end of the year, whatever the total was, gets divided equally by the people in the county. So everybody gets an equal share, but you cannot collect it until you're over 55 years old, because this is another structure of retirement, you could sort of say, for the natives. You know, you have to work a few years. You have to build things up. You have to build up the trust. You have to build up the insurance, you know. And so once we get the insurance built up, and then that way when you're 55, you can start collecting on it. In a way, I've got the bill, and I'm going to be printing that out here in the next 72 hours and get it posted. Excuse me. Ooh, sorry. That will get posted, but I'm putting it in so that way if you're illegal or immigrant, you cannot get paid. Immigrants, and I'm actually going to put the immigration law into this so that way people can actually see the law of immigration, where the federal law, we don't pay. And everybody keeps going, well, the state's supposed to be a superior to the federal government. No, we do not want that. You have the states break apart in the structure, what they're trying to do, and it's 50-state bullshit, but there's only 48 states. Alaska and Hawaii, do your research. Alaska and Hawaii. Alaska is still no man land of 1947. Or was that 45? 1945, and then Hawaii didn't come in until December 1947. So, and that is the one thing that you got to look. Yeah, Hawaii wasn't a state until after Pearl Harbor was bombed. Remember, all this stuff was no man land, and it was still under the British colony. So when you call it the United States, it's under Title 28.3002. The corporation, the federal government's the British government. And people say, no, we're the federal government of the United States. No, we're not. I mean, I put this evidence out for you to read, and read it. That's the whole point. Reading the circumstances of the real facts in front of your face, because when you go to these administrative courts and you're quoting this stuff, you know, it doesn't matter what flag they got, and it does matter in a sense what flag they got, and it matters if they got the eagle or the ball on top of their flag, the spear, that tells you what jurisdiction you're in. But that's why I always suggest people, you write your administrative rules and letters yourself and send them in, and you're requesting what jurisdiction, because you need to know the jurisdiction so that way you could defend yourself. And I'll be having a template to in the next 24 hours written up on that. Oh, excuse me, sorry, I gotta get a cat nap in again. I'll get that written up because I got some court cases coming up here this week, so for others. But We got to get a template. We want to get these things filed, and you're asking the jurisdiction to clarify jurisdiction. Because you need to know what jurisdiction you're going into. You don't know if you're going into a tax court. You don't know if you're going into, bankruptcy court. See, they change their court headings all the time on you. The clerks do it all the time. That's why I send people the information on the clerks, because once you catch a clerk changing the docket, criminal charges you file on that clerk, they will be fired because they can't afford to be caught. That's the one thing. They know it, and once you figure it out, they're not going to play games with you. They're going to let your paperwork go through. They really do. So when it comes down to these court deals, and then if you're on property taxes and stuff, the other point is that we do have a template. I think it's up on the new.org and trackers. If not, we'll get it out. But there is a template I put up a while back ago dealing with asking property taxes, your liability, and who is the property tax owner? Who is claiming ownership that I have to pay this? And then when you want to do it, now I know a couple people that have actually gone in to pay their taxes literally in gold and silver, and they were bluntly told, we can't accept that. And they're like, well, I came to pay it, so you better, what are you going to do? So I know a couple of them, they were completely erased off the tax rolls. So, and I've got a couple things I've been filing. I've filed my paperwork. I've been going after my taxes since 2013, and I keep getting run around because if I win and how publicized I am, and my record with the House and Senate and the news articles that I've been in over the last 15, 20 years, trust me, I've been in a lot of news articles. Even when I put the state of Oregon on trial, Bernice Burnett, the former district attorney, I put her on public trial. It was all in the newspapers. Recalled school board, all in the newspapers. So the stuff that I'm talking to you folks about, I have literally physically written and done myself. I have YouTube videos, and I've got another one. I've got a couple more that I've got to get dubbed off and sent up so we can put it on the website. So I want to start getting all these YouTube videos up, and the videos where, I'm at the Oregon State House and Senate where I got Democrats literally threatening my life in public hearings on recording record. So I want to get those up so people can start seeing this. I mean, this is nothing new, and so this is why you want to keep this evidence. This is why you want to bring this up, because it's called a conflict of interest. They just proved they had a conflict of interest. So that means they can't have anything to do with you. They have a conflict of interest right now because, you have a name that we don't like. It's a conflict of interest. So, and that's the one thing, you want to get a conflict of interest statement and prove that the city, the mayor, the city, county, and everybody's not getting a paycheck off it. The mayor's going to go, I'm a volunteer mayor. No, you're not, because in the city of Toledo, we pay your water, electricity, and your basic bills if you're the mayor. So you're not free. You're compensated. So when these people say that, and you get into these big cities where the mayors are paid anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 a year, and tell me, the mayor up in Portland, he's making $170,000 a year. Ted Wheeler. So these people will lie to you. Remember, they're paid to lie. They're Christians. They lie. I always love it because all these public employees, I always talk to them, I'm a Christian, so you lie. No, I don't lie. Well, your religion says it's okay for you to lie, rape, and steal, doesn't it? People tell me, oh, Ed, you're reaching too far on that religion structure on that. And I'm going, no, prove it to me. That's the one thing that, I am hard on that. I do know that the religion came from England and Spain. I know it was shoved down the natives' throats, and if we didn't take it, we were shot, or, we were murdered. If we didn't do that, the women were raped into submission. And that's the point. They're still today raped into submission. I've been here in Lincoln County, and I've nailed where the guards were, raping 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-old girls in the honor farms or the juvenile detention centers, and I knew 6 girls that were pregnant by the deputies. And I brought it out in the public hearings, and next thing you know, these girls are shipped out in other parts of the state and never heard from again. True story, real facts. You know, and then a couple of them, I worked with their parents trying to, got their kids back out, but it's like the parents didn't want to go after the criminal charges, and it's like your daughter was fucking raped by a fucking sheriff deputy, and you accept it? Oh, she'll go pray to God. God will forgive them, and we'll just amend. And I'm like, what kind of fucking moron are you doing that to your own child? You know, the child has the psychological and the trauma that child has to live the rest of her life. So that's why the conflict of interest is so important that you file with these people a conflict of interest statement. For the judge, the clerk, anybody involved in your case. Remember, they have to put in a conflict of interest statement, and isn't it a fact they all get paid by the same boss, the same employer, the same tax write-off, the same deal? And you always want to do is ask them for their VIN number or the EIN number. Their employees, I don't have to give you my Social Security number. Well, actually, by law, if you're an employee, your Social Security number's up. The only way your Social Security number is protected if you're not elected in public servant. Read the administrative rules. And I put these administrative rules, and like I said, I'll be putting more and more up tonight like I did last time. Last week, I had over 61 comments. The week before that, I had 98, and a couple weeks back, I had up to 101 dealing with the comment lines on Oregon Tracker's YouTube channel. And you go on these YouTube channels and go down it. You'll see the heading and start finding out what works for you. Read what might work for your court case. I'm putting this stuff up for you. Because if we don't protect each other, your children don't have a future. My children are dead. Nobody gives a shit about me or my children. My kids are dead. No big deal. I mean, don't have no emotions on that one. Been dead all my life, so what do I know? Okay, but if it's happened to your child, when you're living and you've seen it and you know what's going on, stand up for that child. That's your responsibility to write the criminal cases. And people go, well, and I was just arguing with a lady earlier this week, from New York City. And it's like, unfortunately, New York City, owned by the Vatican. And I was explaining to her, you need to file these charges on the behalf of your daughter. And I said, you can do it. You're the mother. She goes, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm going to have to let God take care of it. I'm going to pray to God. So your daughter goes through the mental trauma, and this is a 13-year-old child. And so the child gets to go through this trauma for what happened to her, and nobody stands up for it because the district attorney really can't do it. The cop can't write a court case. They know this. The only one who can write an affidavit for an injured man or woman or child is you. The injured man or woman or child involved or the parents thereof. Or a close personal friend or somebody that has immediate knowledge of what the perpetrating of the injury happened. So you can't go and write something up with hearsay, because hearsay, that's what they're doing to Donald Trump right now. Hearsay evidence, the Democrats and this idiot, what the hell's his name? I'm trying to remember his name. The idiot chef is the one that owns the banks from the Queen of England. Pelosi, $200 million. How do you make $200 million, especially $100 million in the last 10, 12 years when you are a senator at I'll say $250,000 a year, plus her expenses, and her staff and all that? That's $750,000 a year she gets for her staff and all that. So, and that's she's making in 10 years $100 million. Excuse me. She's using her position for personal financial gain. That's a federal crime. If you benefit from your position as elected and public official, that is a crime. That's a minimum 5-year sentence. They just had what's his name in California just got him nailed for embezzlement of public funds out of his department. I can't remember the senator, the Oriental senator's name. He just got several years in prison for doing that. And so that's the one thing too, is that when you're in these positions, if you're doing this stuff, you got to be very careful because you piss off your party. They turn on you like hotcakes. Because remember, it's all about Ruth Ryan and all about me, me, me. So I want to get over here and read a couple more things. I got to keep moving. But see, this is the one thing that when you're writing your information now, if you've got a traffic citation, you're going through this, you want to write the criminal charges on the judge. He's extorting money from you. The cop, he pulled you over. You want to write charges on him and ask him who's paying the salary. And that's a conflict of interest when it comes to the state or the county. So when it's being paid by the state or county, that's a conflict of interest because they're in for personal financial gain to steal money from you. And that's truly the circumstances. You know, rape, rob, and pillage. That's what the whole circumstances is all about. Rape, rob, and pillage. And so once you start stepping out of these movies and watch these productions of how these production companies are really working, who's paying, how they're getting the income, where's the money coming? You know, and remember, the money ain't there because it's all paper money. Doesn't exist. So then also too, if you go on to exhibit, you can type in on YouTube channel exhibit 05051, former IRS Commissioner Steve Miller will come up, or he even admits your taxes are voluntary. You know, even the 16th Amendment was never passed, never ratified. And that was proven in Congress, congressional record, and that was recorded June 13th, 1967, page 15641 through 15646. And that was the DYETT versus Turner case of 1968. And it's very clear about this that the 16th Amendment was never passed nor could have been ratified. And the original 16th Amendment was to be passed at $500,000, which I have, and I have a commentary I wrote on that. That was 28 pages. I wrote the history of the banking structure. And that says right there that it was never passed, it was never ratified. Taxes are not, even property taxes were never passed and ratified. We're just getting told that if we don't pay it by gunpoint, we're going to be murdered. You know, and that's the one thing. And where is the Citizen Immigration Fund? See, they have these funds out there they've been putting money in for the last 3 decades, 4 decades. Where is the money? See, that is the one thing. They've been doing this stuff to us for years and are pocketing the money. I mean, when I went after them for the uninsured motorist fund, you know, Senator, what the hell's the idiot's name? And, you know, says, oh, Ed, you know, the money's been spent. You can't spend the money or the paper trail. You stole the money. Trust me, and I have that on my video, and I put his stuff out there all the time. It just pisses me off. And he was one of the guys that destroyed my relationship, you know, 15 years ago. Because I exposed this stuff, and I started speaking out, and then all of a sudden, you know, I wouldn't start going to church and doing what, you know, I was not being a good boy and doing what I was told. And so, of course, I always had that problem. Anybody who knows me, I can't do that. So, and then the other point we want to get into tonight, and I'll be posting this up, is how to prove a contract was signed under duress. So when you're signing that traffic ticket, all right, you want to put under duress on that ticket. When you're signing anything, including when you're in a hospital, they want you to sign medical papers under duress. People say, you can't do that. Oh, I do it all the time. Yes, you can. Last August, when I was having my heart attack, they came in an ambulance, and of course I thought it was interesting. And I called for an ambulance, and SWAT shows up. Then the ambulance shows up after SWAT. So, but anyhow, you know, they're telling me, well, Ed, we need to sign this paperwork. And I said, I'm under duress. You wouldn't want me to commit a crime. That's all you have to say. You know, you wouldn't want me to commit a crime, would you? Now remember, all nonprofit directors, agencies, are personally liable with their homes and assets. Nonprofit agencies, doesn't matter who, what, why, and how. If you are president or a nonprofit employee, you are liable with your actions, with your access, with your property, with your assets. You know, and that's the other one, that citizens all have a right to own a house and personal property. This has been determined, and this is under 16 CJS Constitution Law, Section 202, page 987. So when they come after your property taxes, this is one thing I'm going after. I'm listing this stuff, writing it. So basically, I've been told that they're going to basically do whatever they want unless the judge says otherwise, is what I was informed. So what I'm doing is I'm going to run for office. I'll have my forms done this week. I'm going to have a couple ballot titles I'm going to put out. And then I'll file my criminal charges and go after them while I'm running for office. Figure might as well, you know, make it known this is the way it is. Because when you run for office, the media has to write at least part of what you say by law. Been there, done it. I mean, last time I ran for office, the only reason why they publicized and the advertising in the papers and stuff was because I was running for office. Back then I had the resources, which I'm going to have to start a deal online or something to come up with resources for advertising. But you know, I'll set up something so that way it goes to them, because I don't want your money, they want it. So, and it wasn't until the 1980s, prior to the 1980s, nobody paid for the elections. The TVs and radio stations, they used to run a total of 2 hours for the candidates in election time throughout the whole period, and they would write off in taxes. Well, when the corporation went back to England in the 1980s, they decided, oh, we're not going to write it off. We're going to start charging people for the election campaign. So even though that you're not supposed to pay for elections, but you are. Even though it's a federal crime, it is, but you are. See, I mean, that's how they get around it. And then after, 30 years, people are doing it, and the kids today, they grow up, they don't know any different. They have no knowledge of any real history. They never taught anything. Most of the kids today are very ignorant and stupid and dumb. They've been so dumbed down. Remember, don't forget, the 1980s, you couldn't have one kid smarter than the other, so every kid had to be stupid and dumbed down. That way, when a kid graduates today, he's only graduating at a 9th grade education, when it used to be done in the 1950s. And that's the one thing you got to realize. It is that severe. So in 1895, the Supreme Court says taxes were unconstitutional. Income tax. And remember, property taxes is the income tax too. That's why when I always suggest that you pay your water electricity bill, you always do a 1099 form. We'll get the other forms up. And that's it. If you're writing checks, send them in with these forms. If you want to personally, have them certify the form and stamp a copy so you can personally mail it in. So, and that's the one thing that, you want to do. I'm going to be doing that this month. I'm going to get a couple of these forms. I'm going to personally autograph them. I'm going to mail them into the water company, the phone company. And I'm going to tell them I need you guys to start filling this out. And that's what we need to start doing. All of us need to start doing this. We want to start having our rights intact. We've got to do it. You got to prove you have rights. That's how they get away with it. And that is the one thing, state property. Whose property are you? That's why when people get their kids kidnapped, I always ask them, did you file to own your child? Can you prove your bloodline? Did you ever file to own your child? And they always go, what does that mean? See, that is the one thing. And then that's the one thing you got to remember. Treaties, especially the Treaty of 1213 is from England. It's not American. All this stuff that people want to go by is from England. We are not a British colony. And the minute you stop acting like a British colony and start acting like you have rights, then we'll have rights. And that's the one thing I will be putting up in the link again tonight is Natural Born Citizen Explained. That's a professor that said that, that you had to be born on this soil to be, anybody. You had to be born 5 or more generations. She even says that in her speech. Listen to what the woman's telling you. Our forefathers didn't want people coming to our property or our soil and just putting their name down and start just living off the land. You know, that's the point. You had to come in this country with permission. We are not a country that has an open door policy. Never has been. Only been that way when it really got down to it since the 1913 when they did Ellis Island, and the Democrats started doing this so they get Social Security numbers after they put in the Social Security Act so they can start writing off these Social Security so they get the Social Security number, and they know they had $630,000 they could borrow to build homes, and they could build buildings, skyscrapers, public buildings, offices. I mean, it's horrifying. If you go out to Portland today, I mean, the building that's going into Portland, and there's no money. I mean, everybody's booming. Oh, everybody's booming. Say Portland's booming, and it's got all this business. There's no business. There's no money going in. It's all taxpayer funded. All these new apartment buildings that are going in, they're not being funded by anybody. They're being funded by the city. That's why the city is raising the taxes another 40%. I know. I've been talking to people about public meetings on this, and it's like trying to explain some of this stuff. You know, and it's like they're going, oh, well, I just got to pay this. And it's like, how about filing and fight against it? Well, if I do that, you know, I lose this, I lose that. And it's like, well, you know, what happened to people getting together and working with each other? That's the saddest part. People have no concept about that reality anymore, working with each other. Some do, most don't. You know, and that's the whole point with this group here is like, you know, we got problems. We need to talk about it. We need to share about it. We need to, you know, that's the whole point about these things is talking about it, bringing the stuff to the board and see how we're going to do. So, and this is the one thing, too, that when it comes down to the oath of office, you want to get them to swear the oath of office. You want a certified copy, a wet ink certified copy that their oath of office is for them. And that is Title 3113, their oath of office. And you want them to prove it, and that's the whole thing. And when they start talking to you in person, that's one thing. You know, when people start doing that to me, works for the Public Employees Union, and start talking about me being a person, it pisses me off. Because I'm not your person. I'm your owner. You're my employee. So municipalities, your city, county, and state employees can be sued. They have no exemption. I don't give a shit what some attorney will tell you, some judge. I have the laws. There is no exemption. They can be sued for anything, for violating your oath of office or telling you to take a hike. Verbal abuse, and that goes to the police department. They always want to turn it on us and we. And that's the problem, that people don't get it. They're turning their policies on us and want us to live under their policy when it's their policy is supposed to be protecting us. So, I mean, and that's the other point. The 11th Circuit Court has recently stated that only offices who have final policymaker authority may render a municipality liable. So, and this is under Section 1983 Hill versus Clifton. 74 F3D 1151152. This is 11th Circuit Court, 1996. And then they have another citation too. That is Pember, Pembaur versus City of Cincinnati. These people are liable with their homes and their assets. And remember, well, you know, the sheriff are volunteers. The sheriff cannot be out of the court system. The sheriff's deputies, and I have the laws where the sheriff has no authority to even arrest anybody. The sheriff's authority is to protect the judge in a courtroom. And that's the one thing that people need to realize, that there's policies in this, and you need to quote these policies when you're writing these letters and your stuff. You need to write this stuff in it. You know, the municipality, here's the liability of a municipality. You write it in, they're going to go, well, that doesn't mean anything. Well, when it goes to when it goes into hang on a second, I got a thing. When it goes into another court system, you've already got evidence laid out. So, and that's the point. You have an evidence trail. Now you're writing, they wrote the laws, so now you're making sure that the laws and administrative rules are there to aid you and to protect you. And that's the one thing, is you want to quote these rights. These lawsuits, you want to quote these things in your deal. False arrest. Okay, and also, too, false reports. This is Penal Code 118. You know, per jury panel code 118.1. You know, and, you know, I will be posting this into the structure tonight on the YouTube channel so you can read this. A false arrest is when you're kidnapped and held for ransom. If there's no injured man, woman, or child, that's false arrest. That's kidnapping. That's putting you in prison. That's holding you for bail. That's called theft of services. And what do I mean by theft of services? You get a cop that's doing that. He stole the services to arrest you, so that way he's trying to justify an income for his job. So that's theft of public services, because the public's paying him to steal money from the public for his job. But see, when you write this stuff like this in the paper, and you got these administrators that read this shit, and you got a judge that reads this shit, and you send it to the newspaper, and people go, what? You know, I mean, and that's the one thing. I know I scared the hell out of the newspapers in Oregon. I write this stuff up, I send it to everybody, and everybody's terrified. You know, I mean, I've had newspapers that told me, the owners of the newspaper told me, Ed, shit, if I run that in my paper, you know, they would shut us down. We'll be out of a job. Whereas Penal Code 26350, open carry a firearm. Where are penalties for PC 25850, carrying a loaded firearm in public? Of course, I have done that more than once. Every time I carry my arms, they better not be unloaded. You don't have a chance to reload a gun in a shootout. Let me tell you, and I've been in a couple of shootouts. You don't have time to think to load a gun. You want it loaded right then. So failure to intervene. Officer has a duty to protect individuals for constitutional violations by fellow officers. And so when you're officers and you get more than one cop and you're being threatened, and you want to write this stuff into your deal, that the officer didn't protect your Constitution rights. He violated his oath of servitude. So you have to put this stuff, if there's more than one cop, you have to put this in writing. That the other cop didn't do that. The defense attorney didn't protect my rights. And I'll put this in the description on the YouTube channel tonight. You know, and for those, you could cut and paste to make it easier for you. It makes it easier to get that one. You know, and also, too, misconduct. But when a cop does misconduct, you have to write the misconduct. You have to prove the misconduct. And that's the other point. And I will be putting again tonight in the original 13th Amendment. I do have that in writing with the structure to verify that. And I do recommend that when you do, I always write in my stuff when I mail everything out or email, non-corporation, corpus delicti, 18 U.S.C. 3771. And then I always like to use the DMM code, 60213. That's your mailing, so you don't have to use a zip code. I always put a zip code in parentheses if I do it. Because remember, and that is your zoning, and remember, your zoning goes to your post office that are your military base. Your post offices are your military base in your region. And that's the one thing most people they won't tell you that, and most people don't get it. That's your military base, and you're asking permission. Okay? And that's the one thing that, you know, people got to realize. Your military bases have a lot to do with the structure around you. You know, people will tell you, oh, no, they don't. And then I'll put in a deal, too, what to expect from a grand jury. in the deal tonight. And I want you guys to take the time to read this stuff, because when you're going through these court systems, you know, you have to know this stuff. You have to read this stuff. You know, once you start getting a grasp of this and you start really get into this, what they call the tunnel of the rabbit, you know, I mean, it starts becoming fascinating where you just keep going. It's like it's almost like a drug in a sense. You got to see what the next turn is and how to come up with the next subject, You know, and take a mandatory judicial notice of the following. You know, ticket complaint. You're writing the criminal charges on the officer for extorting money, and this could be used under Penal Code 740. I mean, these rules and regulations, that's why when I read this stuff and I post them in the web pages so that way you get them. You know, and a big deal. And so you comprehend this. An officer cannot prosecute this case. Penal Code 691. Whichever state, and the prosecuting attorney cannot prosecute. Because the only one that falls under the RICO Act, if they do this. An officer doesn't have a bar license or what they call a bar card. He cannot prosecute, nor can he have an opinion in a court. So when they put the cop on the stand, well, the cop is testifying on the behalf for the corporation, the rape, rob, and pillage. So technically, that's a crime. They cannot put him on the witness stand, and that's under the RICO Act, under U.S. versus Frego, F-R-E-G-A, 179-3-RD, 793, 9th Circuit Court, 1999. 9th Circuit Court is on the West Coast here in California. Whereas 3 judges were charged using the court as racketeering enterprise to extort money. This is the court case how they were utilizing it to extort money for property taxes and traffic tickets. So, as I said, an officer cannot prosecute a court case. A judge cannot prosecute a court case. The only one who can prosecute a court case is the injured man or woman. And like I said, I'll put all this stuff up in the website tonight so that way you can pick apart this stuff and utilize what's the best interest of you. Do not forget to always include the FAIR Act, the Foreign Administration Registration Act, you know, and we'll put that up. And I always put this in all my writings. I always cut this whole point out to see if they're registered, and I always put this in, you know, where agents, you know, described in Section 611B, title. Remember, they're taking a title of nobility. So you're doing this, and all public servants, officers, congressmen, politicians, judges, attorneys, lawyers, law enforcement, state their various agencies. They have to form and produce that they don't have a conflict of interest or liability or license. And remember, if a judge has a license to practice law, he cannot practice law in his court. If a judge has an attorney has a license to practice law, he can only do it in the courtroom of their courtroom. He cannot do it against you, the Native American. He can only practice law on an immigrant or elected public servant or a government agency. He cannot do it to we the people. And I will post this law up there. And so this is the point. Once people start realizing these laws and people go, well, they're just going to do what they want to do. Well, shit, yeah, they're getting away with it because of you. You're not filing these charges. They, in Title 22, U.S.C. 611, public officials, foreign agents, ordered to hold public office, which I have done. I'm like, you know, I'm going to go have fun. I know I won't win, but I'm not going out to win. You know, because the system doesn't want me in the system because they know they know what I do, and who knows how far I'll live after that one. You know, because people don't want change. They're scared to be free. Most people don't even know what freedom is. Freedom is hunting and fishing without a license, just going wherever you want. and we want the laws to apply to them as they do to us. And this is United States versus Olmstead, and I'll be putting that in the deal. And the one thing, let me clarify, I am not an attorney. I am not a lawyer. I'm not your psychiatrist either. We do not give out legal advice here. We do not give out advice anyways. We are not, anybody. We're just a guy on the street just reading this stuff to let you know what you have to try to do. And in trying to allege terrorists in the Article 3 courts, see, there's Article 3 courts and tribunal courts, Article 1 administrative courts. You have to specify in writing. The Article 3 court constitutionally set up as an article division of the federal government. The article was ratified September 17th, 1787. The Article 3 courts are ratified. They're already made lawful. And so this is the point. You need to go and you quote this stuff, the Article 3 courts, and I'll be posting the Article 3 courts on the website tonight. So, and that is what you want to do. And you always want to say, I'm entitled to counsel. Never use the word attorney or lawyer. Never use those two devil's words. I want counsel. Because in that way, anybody can be counsel, and that way you're not liable for their homes, their assets, for you getting counsel. Because they're going to sit there and go, now you need to pay a lawyer. Article 3 your entitled counsel does not mean you have to pay a lawyer. And I'll get into some more of this stuff a little later. It's almost been going on for a little time here. So I'm going to be posting a lot of this stuff back into the Facebook page or the YouTube channel tonight. So this way you guys could go through it. And the other people that I've been having contact all this week, I will still have contact with. Got the other court cases going on. Got several of them going on right now. And then we're getting out the structure that police, when they turn on their sirens and lights, it's a federal crime. Because if they use their lights without an emergency, that's a crime. You can file that on them. And I got to get the other paperwork so you can do that. I have that somewhere. And so when they're using their lights and sirens, in a non-emergency situation, that's extortion. That's already been proven in federal law. And so that is the one thing, and I will put that up here in the YouTube channel tonight. That, or the YouTube channel tonight. So this way you can start seeing how it works. Research this stuff. Because I can tell you all this stuff, and I'm giving you an idea of what's going on, but I want you to research this stuff. I'll post it up, and you need to find out what your court case is. What's going to benefit you? How is this going to help you? So that is the one thing with these courts. Because remember, these guys are out to rape, rob, and pillage because they treat you like an immigrant. Some people are immigrants, but you got a file that says, hey, I'm an immigrant. I did this, so I apologize. Okay, but Native Americans, we have rights, not privileges. We are not an immigrant. See, immigration laws are different. And by federal and state laws, and even in most of your states, it even says in the state law that, oh, that's right, you're an immigrant, you have no rights. It's in the state law, but, the Democrats, they want all these birth certificates so that way they can build new buildings and credit. That's how these politicians make money. By building, selling hats, selling T-shirts. I can't believe how gullible people are. So, but anyhow, with that one, let's go ahead and open up the floor, and I'll get ready to put all this stuff up tonight on the channel.
All participants are unmuted.
Okay, floor is open. Anybody's got any thoughts?
Hey, Ed.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I see you. Okay, you emailed me a bunch of stuff. I've been reading it. Really good. I appreciate it. Thank you. One thing, though, well, actually a few things, but one to start. Thing about the foreign registration.
Yes.
If none of them if none of them do it all the way to the top, I mean, I don't know the numbers on this, but what I've heard is there's very few registered foreign agents, and they are actually lobbyists for foreign causes. So what I'm getting at is, who do you tell it to?
Well, it's like I got it filed with the Foreign Registration Administration Act because I filed it right with them, and by law, they're supposed to go after any public employee who's not registered. By law, they're supposed to mandatorily, you have to write the criminal charges, and once you prove it, then they have to arrest that man or woman. The United States Marshal is to put him in jail.
Well, so shouldn't the United States Marshals also be registered or not?
The United States Marshals technically are not foreign agents.
Okay.
Because marshals are the first law enforcement agency in this country founded by, what was his name? George Washington. And that is the only lawful and legal, or AKA legal, law enforcement agency in the entire United States is the United States Marshals. Let's clarify, not the Continental Marshals.
Right.
Continental Marshals and Continental Judges is like, that's what, oh God, what was his name? Oh God. Bruce Doucette, when he got nailed for 38 years, and he went into Colorado court, and I'm arguing with Bruce, this is before he goes to court, what the fuck are you going into administrative court? You're supposed to go into Washington, D.C. You're claiming you're a judge? Well, and that's the one thing that, you can type in Ann Von Ritz and Bruce Doucette. That's when Ann Von Ritz, separates herself from Bruce Doucette, even though that she's the one who instructed Bruce Doucette what and how to do things.
Right.
So, no, when it comes to that, the United States Marshals are the only ones that are supposed to have authority. I know I've had a conflict with some of them for the last 30 years myself, for what I personally went through with them personally myself when I took an oath back in 1983. So, it's just deciding who, what, why, and find the people that are in office who's going to prosecute. Because here in Oregon, the state attorney general sleeps with the governor, Kate Brown. Some of the senators and House of Representatives sleep with each other. So, and it's frustrating, because when you hang around the Capitol, you could tell body language.
Right.
If people ain't paying attention to body language, I feel really sorry for you because you ain't living in the real world. But you can tell what's going on with people in body language. But yeah, no, it's following that. And I have these criminal charges. That's why I haven't seen nothing done. That's why I decided I'm filling out the paperwork this week. I will have it filed this week because I'm going to run for county commissioner. So seeing that when I put my name in county commissioner, I can start exposing, property tax, how the funding's working. They're going to be pissed off because they can't just cut all my words out, because I'm running for office, but they're going to cut quite a bit out. But, at least I'll get some of it through the squeaking points. And I know I've been there before, but, it's like I really don't want to do it. But now I'm going to be put in this position, so I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to do these ballot titles that are going to go for the lottery funds. So I might as well go have fun, put the ballot titles in for property taxes and all this stuff. And as I'm running for office, because I file now, the election ain't until November. So I got 4 months to really expose a lot of stuff during the summer.
Yeah. Well, and kind of on a similar line, I'm involved in a case, and I went down to Secretary of State, and the judge I'm in front of actually does, she's new to that county from a different county, actually does have a oath of office recorded with the Secretary of State. I didn't ask about the bond. The little prosecutor lady, though, doesn't have one down there, doesn't have one with the county, asked her in front of a witness, you got a copy of your oath and bond? And she said, it's on my computer.
Can't be.
Huh?
It has to be hanging on the wall. It has to be a paper.
Well, that's what, it's like, yeah, can I have a copy? So I'm not sure what to do. They're railroading me on toward trial.
Okay, no, what is that? Now, I sent you stuff on that. Didn't I send you my phone number?
You did, and I called it once, and it rang and rang, but I did get all that. I got a bunch of information from you on. I've been reading it, and some of it, last time I was in it, they tried to push a couple papers on me, and I said, well, I'll just take note of the dates. And they said, oh, no, you got to sign this and put it back. And
no, you don't have to sign anything. That's where signing under duress, or you have to put in writing that you're being forced under duress.
That's what I signed. I put no name, anything else. I put 2 words on those papers, and it was under duress, and that's all I put on there.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, and I don't know if that was before or after I read the parts that you said on that, but that was that's the way I felt. It's like I was trying to do the. Are you familiar with the Batman technique?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was kind of trying to go that way. And I was gonna ask her just directly, when do you believe you got joinder on this case? And
right.
But I kind of froze up. I didn't do any of that stuff. So.
Oh no! All you had to do is put that in writing and just hand it to them in writing. Then.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm gonna have. That's what I'm gonna have to do. So anyway,
yeah,
I got to
get your questions in writing to them, and then don't forget to ask them in writing what jurisdiction of courts that they're going in this direction.
Yeah,
what's the jurisdiction?
That was one of the things I would have had like I say, had I been able to keep my shit together a little better. But yeah, I'm pretty good away from the court, and I've been through it enough time that I should be way better by now. But they stretched this out. Early on, I was fired up because they stole my hat and a couple of things like that. But they have.
How long ago did this happen?
Oh, this was last June.
Oh, so they've been keeping this docket open so that way they can still run off your Social Security number to have an open case. So anytime that case comes around, even though that you're not there, they're not there, they can still build a case for financial gain.
Right. I thoroughly believe that, but I am not. I'm still working on all that. I did ask the treasurer of the county, well, how do I find out about the bonds on the court case? And they all act dumb and pretend.
Did I send you the municipality bond structure?
You probably did. I had a friend. I'm not online here, so I got to go somewhere. I had a friend download what you emailed me, but I haven't been. I got to bug him some more because I can't call. I don't know how to call. I'm not particularly computer literate, and so I need people to help make it real easy for me. But yeah, I've got that much time, and I'm sure you did because you sent me a bunch of stuff. So.
Yeah, when you get a chance, re-email me or email again because I know it's probably about 5,000 behind of what I've already sent out right now.
Yeah. Well,
okay, I mean seriously, just in the last 4 hours, I've already put out 800 emails.
Yeah, well, you're a busy boy, I can tell. Anyway,
as soon as you email me, I could email you the other point. But when you get on, seeing that you're not always on the computer, like I said, I'll have this stuff on the YouTube channel tonight on what a cop can and cannot do. I'll have that broken down so it would be easier to read instead of the whole block chart that I normally put up. So I'll try to narrow. Excuse me. I'll narrow it down to some headings, but I'll still put up, some of the block chart as I can. But folks, you need to read this stuff and print this stuff out. Make sure you put it on a flash drive or a floppy or whatever, so you got this information. Because when they do decide to shut the system down, at least you got it somewhere.
Yeah, cool, man. I really appreciate all your work.
So I appreciate your time, and like I said, send me an updated email. I'll get this other stuff out to you. And when is your next court date?
28th of February.
All right, well, let's get moving on this, because you want to get some papers served in, and you want to make sure served, especially you want to know what jurisdiction you're going into.
Right. Well, that's, yeah, I haven't really had, I tried to ask the judge a couple things.
You can't do that. You have to put it in writing.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it ain't in writing and it ain't served, and you don't go in the clerk and get a stamp from the clerk on your writing affidavit, that's why I always say do an affidavit, and you always walk in with 3 copies. One for their copy stamped, one for your stamp and copy, and one for your file. And that means your file, when you come back to court, you already got one in your court system, but you have one in your file that's in your file that nobody knows where it is.
Right, and I'd always heard 4. One for yourself, one for the judge, one for the clerk, and one for the prosecutor. And which I've done down here where I'm at, but where this case is going on, they said, oh no, the judge and the court are the same. That's one copy. But I
even have the federal law. If they're trying to say the judge and the court are the one and the same, that means by law they have to dismiss the case because they just admitted to racketeering and RICO.
Cool. Well, I like that. Well, and I had a handwritten thing for Brady material, and in red ink, and she said, "Oh, I can't take this in red," and I said, "What? Oh yeah, why not?" But anyway.
Yeah, no, they've done that to me. Says you can't take it in red, and I said, "Excuse me, isn't it your job to file paperwork, not to ask the questions? Because if you're trying to do that, isn't that you're trying to persuade a conviction?"
Right. In the very least, influence the case, right?
Right, exactly. See, you got to think about these things when you talk to them, because when you talk to them and you nail them on this stuff, they go, "Shit, we don't want you to be part of it. We stamp and give your paperwork and we run." And I like it when they stamp my paperwork and run.
Yeah.
And I've had them where the judge calls them in and goes, "Did you do this?" And I said, "Your Honor, you can't do that to that employee." And the judge will get pissed off. This is my courtroom. And I would say, "No, it's not. Under treaties, under native treaties in the Constitution, it is the people's courtroom. Can you explain to me in writing where it's yours?"
Right. Well, that's something I've always wanted to ask. Oh, this is your court? Oh, I must be in the wrong. Is there a people's court around here somewhere?
Right. And do not use common law courts. Common law is the British structure. Common law says, I'm a British subject. Common law courts were founded in the 1300s by the Joker of the King of England at the time. Common law. So, common law says that if, we're all sitting there speeding, that's common law. If we're sitting there, harming somebody, that's common law because everybody's doing it, so it's common, so we can do it. So I don't like using the word common law. Go ahead.
No, that's interesting, and I like that because a lot of the people I listen to and a lot of people on some of the other calls, they're promoting common law and think it's a good thing. What about a court of record?
Yeah, I would do a court of record, but see, common law comes from England. So it's common, and that is the foundation of the Christian Crusade. Says it's common, so we can put you on that sticker plant.
Right.
See, and that's where all these people are pushing common law. They don't even have a concept of what the hell they're talking about common law. Common law says, the children are being raped, so that's acceptable. That's common law because we can rape the children because it's common, so everybody's doing it. That's why I stay away from common law.
That's interesting because, okay, one of the guys, says court of record. A court of record proceed. One of the points. There's like 4 points to a court of record, but one of them is that it proceeds under the common law. So that's kind of an interesting point.
Well, I don't want to be common, because if it's common, that means we're all doing it.
Right. Right.
I want to have rights. It's like people say, well, don't you have rights? And it's like, I have rights so long as that is not common, because if it's common, there's no rights. Because, that's what I'm saying, is if everything is the same, and I'll find the thing too, going back to the 13th century where common law, under the king, says the king, the magistrate, has authority, and that's the king has the authority. And that's where people don't comprehend, where common law says everybody's doing this common law stuff, and I keep trying to explain to people, you don't want to do common, because what is the word common? That means we're all doing it.
Right.
And so, and that depends on who the structure is, and then common law is portrayed by a magistrate.
I like that. It's that's like I say, people I've been listening to, they're pushing for common law, and that's a different perspective. I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, and it's like people don't realize, see, when you want, and that's the other point, I'll bring this up to you too, Municipalities Security Rulemaking Board, EMMA. You want to know where your stocks and bonds, or where your traffic tickets and all that, go to EMMA.
Okay, that's because I've been trying to. That's part of what I'm trying to find out. It's like I know you're making money on this, and I know. See, the only thing Dave drug it out for, I asked for discovery. That's all I asked for, and they keep dragging it out. Now I'm in front of a new judge, and she's all of a sudden moved this along. It's like, wait a minute. I never once asked for a continuance. You guys have been doing this all along. So anyway, Emma, if I just search Emma.
Yeah, EMMA. And that is, and you can always type in Municipality Securities Rulemaking Board. Let me repeat that for everybody. Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. That's EMMA. That's where your tickets, your insurance bonds, and all that stuff gets run through from the city to county and then to state to the state treasurer, and then the income goes to the Roman Catholic Church.
Well, man, thank you. Yeah.
And then also, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, that would keep me for a minute. The next question wants to come on.
Okay, but then you go into the structure of EMMA, and then you can type in EMMA, EMMA-S, Marketing Activities, EMMA About Data Port. And that'll take you right to your insurance bonds, your jail bonds, to how it works, who's getting the percentage of the money. Like I said, all this stuff is online. That's when you put all this stuff together and you start going, holy shit, they do this. And then when you start questioning them, because like when you make phone calls from the jail, they get paid percentage.
Oh yeah, that's a giant fucking racket. They got everybody's family kicking in for commissary and phone calls. And that shit. Yeah, that's.
And remember, all EMMA bonds are tax-free. Because I'm betting on you paying off your ticket, so it's an insurance bond, it's a stockholder bond, so they're tax-free. They have to be tax-free. They can't be notified in the tax records, because if they do that, it's proving racketeering, fraud, and extortion, dealing with, what is that, the bail bonds, individual jail, and bail bond scam.
Oh yeah, there's a guy down here in Denver. They got a scam going on here. That's only bonds, and some of the counties schedule, based on the severity of the accusation, blah blah blah. Some of them don't. They put any number they want on it, depending on whether you're somebody who pissed them off or they think they can get the money. Yeah, it's just based on nothing.
Yeah.
In insane amounts cash only. So this guy's got a giant. This guy's got a giant breach in Colorado Supreme Court. And yeah, he's a sharp guy. He's got a win down there already, and it's only supposed to be so many pages or whatever. But he's already over. Yeah, trying to help a guy that they've got right now. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I was going to court with a friend, and they got like a reverse ATM machine. They got the jail and the courtrooms in the same building, and they got like this reverse ATM machine. You stick cash right in the machine for cash only bonds. It's
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And
Well, see, all that is fraud. All that is rape, robbing, and pillaging. And what gets to me is people don't get it.
yeah,
I mean, and they do this like commercial and financial critical titles, and that's exactly what you're dealing with. And I found out, earlier, and this is 1934 when this is volume 139, number 360 they put out on financial statements for critical title. And that's dealing with your insurance bonds.
well, I think all of this, I shouldn't say all of it, but a large portion of this stuff is 1933 and 1934 banking acts.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing that people always have fun when they say, "Oh, Lord, oh, praise Lord, praise Jesus Christ." And I'm like, do you know what a Lord is? Have you ever sat there and typed up in England what a Lord is in England? And I pray the Lord. And I'm like, don't you realize you're praising to a British soldier?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't the Lord from England? Isn't that Lord is the Lord of the house, or the protector of the king and queen?
Right. Lord of the manor.
Thank you. See, and that's what gets to me. How come people cannot see what's simply in front of their face? Says it right there. It's right in front of your face, and they don't get it.
Well, we talk about that a lot. We've been programmed. So, I mean, you were told about Santa Claus before you could really much think, speak, or anything else, right? So we've been kind of lied to before we could really even pay attention.
Yep.
That's what and overcoming it, even when you become aware, it's still that programming's hard to shake, right?
Oh, no, I trust me, I know that because I get into people when they start talking to me about, stuff, and I get hard on. They're like, well, Ed, and I'm like, well, I cannot change my words because I change my words. That means I accept the slavery.
Yeah.
And that's what it really comes down to, folks. Are you going to accept the slavery or not? And that's the one thing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts on this stuff. It's either one way or the highway.
Well, some people pretty good as slaves, and then they look at like people like you and me and some people, and it's like, well, yeah, I'm not doing bad, and you're going to jail. Why would you want me to? Why would I want to do what you're doing? It's like, well,
Oh no, I get that. I agree with you because I mean, you know, and I watch all these people that keep going, oh, you got to use the word God. And it's like, okay, you're using the word God. Okay, so how many people use the word God and you're supposed to do this? You're the judge. You're supposed to act in the name of God. Well, he is acting in the name of God. That's why he's putting you in jail. You know, and put it this way, how come people keep going to jail or put in jail for not committing a crime? Because the attorneys and lawyers need to have you where they can make a living off you, and they make a living while you're sitting in jail.
Oh, it's good for you. You must have done something wrong. You can sit there and contemplate God. Oh, it's going to be good
yeah.
for you.
Well, it's like this comic that I post around on YouTube channels and stuff. You know, it's a slave photograph where, you know, the slaves they're picking cotton, and the slave owner goes to the cotton pickers. You know, when you're done picking cotton, I'll teach you about God. More slavery. You're already enslaved. You're more slavery. See, that's what gets to me, you know. And then the Bible, you know, talks about murder, how to get away with murder in the Bible. And people don't get that one, do they? It teaches you how to get away with murder in the Bible.
Okay, because God told you to. He told you to not leave one man, woman, or child left, right?
Yep. It is a frustrating situation of what we're living today with all the commentaries and all the issues and the craziness. I mean, this is really, this is really crazy what we're truly living. So, anyhow, not to cut you off, but anybody else, if anybody else has got something to say, you can always speak up and, say, I got my turn or something. You don't have to be bashful in the conversation. We're not trying to make sure that one has the control over it. Anybody else?
If I may, Rick in Colorado.
Go ahead.
Yeah, your YouTube site, first of all.
Oh, the YouTube site. All right, that's Oregon Trackers on YouTube.
Oregon Crackers.
No, Oregon, Oregon. Trackers, Trackers, tracking dishonest public employees.
Got it. Okay, so you also mentioned Emma. What was the second part to that?
Well, Emma, the other part of Emma, I gotta go back up here. See, Emma is where you get your bonds, when they write tickets and all that stuff's put into Emma. Let me go back up here. Because, see, and this is the one thing that people do not realize with Emma as a private corporation, and then I will be putting up tonight dealing with the commercial financial chronicle titles, and I'll be putting that up so you guys could open that up, look how this structure gets into it, and let me get over here to Emma and bring that other point up. Because, see, with Emma, this is where your traffic tickets and your judges' oaths are supposed to be filed. Their insurance bond are supposed to be filed under that. And this is also, too, Emma Market Activity. And remember, those are stocks and bonds. Those are traffic tickets that they sell on the open market. So they cannot be taxed because they don't want them trail tax, and the IRS knows it.
Got it.
Those are all based on it. Then also, too, you have municipality bonds online. You can type that in, municipality bonds online, and that's your traffic tickets and all that. And I will post that up in the Oregon Trackers YouTube channel tonight so people can go to that, and read that on the bails, where the money is, how it works, the bail bond stuff. Okay, and see, we're supposed to be able to walk in, and if they got these things, we're supposed to be able to say, hey, write it off on a straw man account. And they're not doing that because they're trying to bankrupt this country from the inside out. And I will be putting up, I do have the structure for the sheriff's office bonds. So that would be in the YouTube channel tonight. I'll post those up. I'll break them down. I don't want to be able to put them all individual. I'm going to have to try to break them down as much as I can, but I'll put a couple of the main things in the headline with the rest of it following. So when it goes to municipality securities, when I put that in, the bonds for the Sheriff's Department will be on the bottom of that when I put that in. And then I will be putting in the structure too, the video where naturalization is explained, because our forefathers, remember the forefathers from the Constitution all came from Spain and England. They were not Indians, they were not native, but when the Constitution was a formation of the paperwork, the reason why the forefathers wrote the paperwork from the foreign countries, they just left religion. Number one, you got to remember, especially in England, the Christian Crusades were still going on at that time. So if you didn't believe and you were not a Christian, you were executed. So, you know, don't get confused about when people try to rechange history or realter stuff to you, because remember, they left their country. They already know what the crimes were going on. They were being raped and robbed, and, you know, the sheriff of Nottingham had all the authority, so you didn't have authority, and if you didn't do what the sheriff said, the sheriff had the right to execute you. Sort of what's going on today in this country right now today. So, and the only thing that we have to defend ourselves is, first, the pen is mightier than the sword, they say, and then arms. And everybody keeps going, well, we need a new civil war, we need new blood, and it's like, no, we could do this without blood. You know, we got to make sure we put honest public servants in office where they start enacting their oath of servitude to start putting these people in prison. But they've had a free reign for the last 30 years, literally. I mean, I watched the change when I went into law enforcement. I was going into law enforcement back in the 80s, and I was listening to all the guys telling me, my God, you really want to go in this hell? They're changing this shit, you know? And I'm watching. I had my own security company back there at the time. You know, I did security. I did, you know, rock and roll security. I did security for junkyards, and I was, you know, basically I was a policy officer, rent-a-cop for hire. So whoever paid me cash, I went and did a job. So, and that's the point today, is that, you know, it's frustrating. We're living this craziness today as far as they're gone. And the only thing we have is to go after on paper. The media ain't going to write stuff to tell you the truth, because the media's been bought out. I mean, when the local media got bought out by Disney here in my county, in my state, because Disney bought the newspapers out in Oregon, and all of a sudden you couldn't say things. It was not politically correct. It's like they're knocking people off on Facebook, because that's not our policy. That's besides community standards. Now Yahoo's doing this on Yahoo, deciding on if they want to let you email an email out, you know, and they'll stop it and say, did you want this email to go out? Click here now. And if you don't realize, or if you didn't know, Verizon company, your cell phone company, Verizon is owned by the Queen of England, the monarchy. Not only that, Verizon is what runs YouTube now, because YouTube sold to Verizon 3 years ago. Or not YouTube, I mean Yahoo did, Yahoo. So it's learning who owns what, how to do this stuff, and then when we do this, we have to file. And so it's so important to make sure that you do everything. You can do your phone calls. I might insert my right to insist that you put it in writing before you call them. And if you're doing anything like that, send it certified registered mail, then call them. Because now you have a receipt from them. You always want to do stuff certified registered mail with the green card. And people say, you don't need a green card. Well, you're dealing with the 1938 Foreign Administration Registration Act that are immigrants. To be a government employee, you give up your constitutional right, you become a foreign agent, so you're dealing with a foreign country. So you need your green card. That's like coming into another country. When you come into our country, you need a green card to come in and do business. So if that explains a little easier for most people what a green card and how a green card is to be used. Because you're coming in and doing foreign business. You want a receipt that they agreed to these terms. Remember, when you get that, and when they get a robo-stamp, you know, when I get a robo-stamp, I go back to the post office. I want to send another green card. I want you guys to pay for it because you guys didn't get me a signature. You didn't get me a wet ink signature. You got a stamp. A stamp is not a signature. You're not, you know, a stamp doesn't, it invalidates a green card in a sense. So you always want to get a wet ink signature on a card because a wet ink signature could always be analyzed, and now you got evidence that a man or a woman had knowledge of what you sent. So you want to make sure that knowledge is known. If that makes sense. So, anybody else got things? Okay. Well, with that one, seeing that nobody wants to speak up and the TikToker was going, with that, we'll call it an evening. And may the Great Spirit bless you. The Creator look over you and Mother feed you. But most of all, when you're doing this stuff, put everything in writing so it cannot be misinterpreted. I mean, I email my city council mayor at least once or twice a day on something. I'll find something just to email them so they have it in record. So when I do go to a meeting or I speak up, didn't you get that? Didn't you recognize this? Say, when I run for county commissioner, I'm going to be able to have fun with that. Hey, I already sent this to the commissioners. How come they don't respond? I mean, I already got some stuff that I'm looking at to have fun, but I got to set up some type of funding site so I get funds so I could, you know, go to public meetings because I'm going to have to, you know, until I am able to travel without being worried about being shot. You know, I got to figure out a way to travel or have somebody drive me around, travel me around or something. I got to figure that out here in the next 2 weeks. So, anyhow, I'll be putting something up on that one, you know, because if I get out and get this stuff going with the city, county, and state, you know, getting this information out, I'm going to open up a hell of a Pandora box when I'm running for office that way. So with that one, anyhow, why don't we call it an evening? I look forward to your emails. Keep in contact, and I'll get the other 4 people that I've got your information. We'll get